You're listening to the Make Mental Podcast.
What's up, Make Mental listeners? I'm Alyssa Herman, former athlete and founder of Beyond the Athlete. If you are a former athlete too, then you know the hardest part of retiring isn't leaving behind your sport, it's losing your teammates. This is why I created The Locker Room, an online community where former athletes rebuild structure, purpose, and healthy competition, all alongside a new team who truly understands them. Make Mental listeners can join free for 30 days. Just use code MAKEMENTAL at the link below to request your spot on the roster.
Go Global is a free-flowing technology company that handcrafts, embellishes, and manufactures garments and accessories. Designed on the principles of people, places, and possibilities, Go Global reimagines fashion and is inspired by you, the people of the world. Hello again, beautiful people. Welcome back to another fantastic episode on the Make Mental Podcast. Today we have on someone who I am looking forward to picking their brain quite a bit. They possess a lot more knowledge, I guess, applicable knowledge in the mental health world than me. I won't do that to myself, but thank you so much, Kaitlyn Pscodna, for coming on the Make Mental Podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Caleb. I'm excited for the conversation.
Yeah, same. And I want to let everyone know how accredited you actually are. Kaitlyn is...
I think I want you to tell everyone.
No, we're going to run through this because I'm proud of this. I am very proud of this. I want you to let me know if I forgot anything.
Okay.
And two, I guess we'll start here, if I have these letters and these certifications correct. So, Kaitlyn is an MSW, a Master of Social Work.
Yep.
An LGSW, which is a licensed graduate social worker. An LLMSW, which I don't really know what that is, but that's okay. An RDN, which is a registered dietitian or nutritionist. CSSD has to do with sports. I know that. And then an LDN, which again is nutrition. So I think the only one I missed there was the LLMSW. Can you fill us in on what those mean? How many years of school did you do? How many textbooks did you buy?
Yeah.
What's all that good stuff?
School was never ending for me. It just went on forever. But yeah, I am a dietitian. That was kind of where I started. I then got my CSSD, which is Certified Specialist for Sports Dietetics. Essentially, all that means is that you've had 2,000 hours as a sports dietitian or practicing as a sports dietitian. Then you have to take this big old test that is very, very challenging. You have to take it once every 5 years. To kind of just tell everybody that, hey, I've kept up with my knowledge. I then also got my master's in social work. And so those LGSW, LLMSW are related to that. Those essentially are just licenses for differing states. And so really, it's not like one is better than the other. They mean the same thing. It's just state by state, obviously, has to call something different. So that is where the alphabet soup comes in. If everybody could just be on the same page, then, it would be much, much shorter.
It makes too much sense, right? It makes way too much sense. And then someone couldn't grab some money somewhere for your certificate.
Of course.
But we're not gonna call out administrations like that. We're just gonna suck it up. We're gonna take our schooling and we're going to do what we love. I went to school for probably 5 years, total 5.5, and that felt like an eternity for me. I'm curious, in your years of schooling or in the years that you've been practicing, what has taught you more, or was it kind of like a typical schooling, okay, these are some scenarios you could see, this is all the content you need, now go practice?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question, and especially because of my expertise and kind of the lane that I practice, which is really in eating disorders and sports. So our traditional dietetics education, you get maybe 1 hour of each of those. And so it's not like, oh my gosh, yes, after you graduate college, you're ready to hit the ground running. You really have to seek out additional opportunities, additional certifications, additional internships, whatever you want to call it, in order to really gain those skills. I would say traditional dietetics education is more clinically based, which is fantastic and absolutely, informs the way that you practice as an eating disorder clinician or as a sports dietitian. But also too, yeah, there's just so much that you have to learn after school,
Mm.
which is kind of the headache in it all, because oftentimes, sports dietitians are doing multitudes of internships or fellowships, or maybe they're a GA or this and that and the next thing before they actually get their first real quote unquote full-time job. And so, yeah, I mean, right now the requirements as a dietitian just in general is 6 years. So you have to have your master's degree, and then you have to go through a dietetic internship, which is usually about 9 months long, which is after that schooling. And then, if you wanted to get that CSSD that we talked about, that's an additional 2,000 hours, which is like an additional 2 years. And so, yeah, it's all just a lot of schooling, a lot of education, a lot of additional things that you have to do.
Yeah, let's kind of jump into the episode here around that theme of having a lot on your plate. Dietitian joke, not even intended right off the bat. Oh, it's gonna be one of those episodes. No, but having a lot on your schedule and on your agenda.
Sure.
How did you take care of yourself during this entire process? Because that is a lot, especially from 18 to whenever you graduate or whenever you start. I just
Yeah,
assume it's 18 for most
sure.
people.
Sure.
How did you take care of yourself during this time period of trying to take care of other people?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And admittedly, I think I could have done a much better job at taking care of myself throughout some of these processes. The schoolwork itself is so heavy, but then also, yes, obviously, while you're doing the schoolwork, you're also encouraged to do a multitude of other things to quote unquote gain experience. And I am certainly somebody that really relies on my community. And so if we're thinking about what actually is the most nurturing, it's really, for me at least, is connecting with other individuals within my field, just so that I'm feeling a lot less alone. But in
Mm.
terms of like boundaries around work, I think I could have done a much better job in regards to that. I mean, I could sit here and rattle off all of the, textbooks ideas of how I took care of myself, like, oh, I did meditation, or I went on a run, or all of those things, which I certainly do. Um, but I think those things are all great in theory, but if at the core we're still feeling like we're constantly strained, those things aren't going to make too much
Mm.
of a difference. And I think that's actually a big, big thing that maybe we all should be talking about a lot more. Like, we can do all of the fluff, but if we're not getting down to the root cause of the issue, um, what good is the fluff really doing?
Yeah, let's talk about it. Let's talk about putting band-aids on bullet holes, if you will.
Correct.
When
Yes.
sometimes you need stitches, right? And that's not a bad thing. I guess that's a scary way to put it right out there to the listeners, but we'll dissect it and hopefully make it a little bit more accessible to them. So, what do you mean? I'm not going to try and put words in your mouth, but what do you mean by the fluff and in kind of just the patchwork versus getting to the deeper root cause?
Yeah, I think, there are a lot of things that are typically recommended to individuals. Like, let's say, for example, eating nutritious meals, or getting exercise X amount of times per week, or making sure that you're sleeping, perhaps doing some meditation, engaging in relationships, and those types of things. And while I think all of those things are absolutely phenomenal, I think sometimes we're masking something that is a little bit more deep than that. That, oh, maybe if I actually worked a little bit less, I could rely a little bit less on some of these other
Sure.
things that I would consider a little bit more of kind of the recommended fluff. Um, but, we're all kind of operating in systems, and so until we're challenging those systems to be a little bit more accessible and to take care of our clinicians a little bit better, I think we're gonna stay in the quote unquote fluff cycle. And again, this is not me at all saying that, hey, let's stop doing all of these things, but I think we have to have deeper conversations versus like somebody's coming to us and they're experiencing a lot of stress, burnout, etc. And all we say is like, well, you should try meditating 2 times a day.
Mm.
We should probably, look what's deeper there. Are there ways to kind of take things off of their plate, actually promote that work-life balance, quote unquote, that gets thrown around a lot? And what does that look like for that specific individual?
Yeah, can I put that into maybe a visual, because those people who listen to this all the time know I'm a very visual person,
Sure.
especially when mental health is such a non-visual space, for lack of a better term. So when I think of what you just said in terms of a visual for athletes specifically, think of a runner training for a marathon
Mm-hmm.
and experiencing some lower back pain.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to tell the runner, if they can push through the pain a little bit or the soreness, to not run 1 to 2 miles a day because they need to hit their goal, right? That's the
Mm-hmm.
meditation. That's the quote unquote fluff, right? You're going to still encourage that. But what you're going to do is ask them, okay, at what mile of the run does it hurt? At
Mm-hmm.
what length of the stride does it hurt?
Mm-hmm.
At what stretch does it hurt? Because maybe it's more than a pulled muscle. Maybe it's a slipped disc. Maybe it's something bigger.
Totally.
And you don't want to stop running, but sometimes, again, to make it visual, you have to slow down, like you mentioned, to be able to realize where it is. Maybe you never thought of it. Maybe you're the type of person, it's like, I'll push through and it goes away eventually.
Totally.
Cool, but it's going to come back up, if not now, in 10 years. Can you do that deeper work to take care of it now? Is that a fair visual?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's really, I think of it similarly to exactly what you're talking about, right? It's like giving a cortisone shot, right? Um, I mean, we use cortisone shots for all different types of things, but the cortisone shot is essentially, reducing that level of pain for a shorter period of time, but, it's not actually addressing the root cause of the issue. So, we could I don't know the efficacy of this, but we could just continue to give cortisone shots all day long. And we're not actually addressing the fact that, the ACL is torn. And,
Mm.
and so I think, that is something that is largely missed in the mental health community. And yeah, I wish we were doing a much better job at addressing it.
How do we catch that in ourselves, or if we are noticing it in someone else? And then I guess, secondly to that, if we're noticing it in someone else, how do we, or how would you, I guess, suggest we approach them carefully?
Yeah, I would say, are we noticing our coworkers have, disinterest in the work that they're doing? Are they, constantly at work? Are they doing absolutely nothing to kind of engage in their social life outside of work? Or, those things that we just mentioned, are they not able to take care of themselves, physically, nutritionally? Are they sleeping poorly? Those types of things. Are they more on edge? Are they irritable? I think all of those are really telltale signs of like, maybe there's something else that's going on here. And like, hey, this person at work who's, you know, constantly complaining about work and always getting angry and irritable, like, do they really need the meditation or is there something that's a little bit deeper there? I would certainly argue that there probably is something deeper there. And in terms of like bridging that conversation, I really think it's a matter of, instead of like the, hey, how are you? Good, you? Um, Perhaps we do a little or have a conversation that's a little bit deeper than that, asking about life outside of work. And I want to hold space for people who are like, I'm not comfortable with doing that. I don't like to share things at work, which is totally fine. But I think the more that we can actually talk about being a human being before we're an employee or a colleague, it just helps actually everyone in the system versus like
Mm.
pretending that we're just robots that show up to work and have no challenges outside of work. So yeah, if we can, continue having some of those hard conversations, actually wanting to get to know our colleagues beyond like, oh, you're an accountant. Okay, this is a task of your job. Can we ask about your kids? Can we ask about what you like to do outside of work? Can we ask, all of these other questions that can really help to get to know someone? And then perhaps they'll actually open up to you and say, whew, I'm just feeling really burnt out right now. I don't know what to do. What would you do? And in that instance, obviously, I think it's hard for me because obviously I'm a therapist, so I know where to make the recommendation or the referral. Perhaps, not everybody knows that information, but, usually,
Correct.
businesses have those or have that information kind of at their fingertips that they could provide you if that's something that you were looking for.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I would also suggest if you don't know where to go and you're comfortable with it or comfortable with your boss,
Hmm.
just ask them, because if they don't have the knowledge, maybe that's something that they need to then acknowledge and say, wait a minute, we need this at our place of work, just
Totally.
in case, right? And I'd be shocked to think that any larger corporation doesn't have that right now, but not everyone works for those Fortune 500 companies. So if you're in a one, two, three person
Totally.
business,
Hmm.
just ask, hey, if it doesn't cost too much extra, even if it does, they probably should provide it because it's necessary.
Totally.
Can you tell me at least where I can get some help, or can you help me?
Hmm.
And if they say no, I would really consider not working there in the nicest way possible. I mean, that's a hot take, but I think that's the truth. But what what I heard you say is, if you notice the subtle or extreme abnormalities,
Yep.
obviously the subtle is much more hard to detect and much easier to cover up for the person struggling. But if you notice those abnormalities at any level, don't
Hmm.
be afraid to ask the
Hmm.
person just how they're doing. You don't even need to say like, are you okay? Is something wrong? Just, hey, how is your day going? And if they say good, follow up. Like you said,
Totally.
don't just leave it there. Take that next step. Be intentional. If
Hmm.
if you're concerned enough to ask someone how their day is going because you've noticed an abnormality, don't stop at that one question. Just say, "Oh, do you have a lot on your plate today? Do you want to grab lunch?" You don't have to do that if you really don't want to grab lunch with this person, but just follow up, because again, we're human. Like, as much as we want to help,
Yeah.
sometimes we need to be alone, right? Take
Totally.
care of ourselves first. But if you have the inkling that something is wrong, I would rather have someone be, worst case scenarios here, alive and never speak to me again,
Hmm.
than never have the chance to speak to them again. And that's jumping to extremes, but sometimes you have to in order to understand the severity of the situation.
Yeah.
My
No, but I completely agree. And that I guess that is all that I was going to say. I mean, you don't even know how many times I've said I'm good when, I,
Mm,
you know, just rolled in from crying in the car, right? And
mm,
I say that and I use myself in that example because I also know that that is so largely prevalent for a lot of people of, like, oh, here I have to go into work and have to pretend that, oh, I am as great as I say I am, when really everything outside of work is completely crumbling down. Or, perhaps even let's say a colleague that on a much deeper level, and maybe for example they're going through a divorce, right? Well, have I seen colleagues of my own who've been going through a divorce and then they show up to work and they said, oh, everything's good, I'm good, when really their whole world is kind of blowing up outside of work. And so um yeah, to your point is, when somebody says they're good, ask further questions, so that you can, yeah, maybe get to know them on a little bit of a deeper level and see if they actually are as good as they're saying they are.
yeah, I'm not sure where I want to take this. I have three different places or three different thoughts that come to mind. So maybe we'll explore one and see if it leads to the other two.
Sure.
Um, when we notice those, I guess we'll give an example. Say you're not hitting your benchmarks at work because your mental health
Sure.
is struggling, or
Sure.
physical health, whatever. You're just struggling.
Sure.
Or your coworker isn't, rather, and you're the boss here. We'll set the scene. You're the boss and your subordinate is not hitting their benchmark, but it's because X, Y, and Z are going wrong in their personal life. How can we find the strength as the boss to give them grace,
Mm.
or know when to kind of be critical, if you will?
Yeah, I think that's a little bit of a tricky question. I think though, Caleb, it comes back to asking more questions, right? We see somebody as, for example, not hitting their benchmark. Okay, are we saying, wow, you're not hitting your benchmark, you're a loser, you're fired, right? Or, reprimanding them kind of right on the spot. We need to be asking questions like, why aren't you hitting your benchmark, right? From this genuine lens, versus why aren't you hitting your benchmark because the company, you're not going to be hitting the quota and blah
Right.
blah blah, whatever else for the company, versus actually caring about them as a human being. um and I think it's hard because a lot of leaders perhaps don't have that people person training, right? So they don't know how to broach those conversations
Mm.
unless they themselves have experienced something like that. Um, but, or if everybody just put social workers in charge of the world, that that would be a really good idea. Then we'd have no issues in
Yeah.
the workplace. But anyways, back to your question. I think it really is approaching it from a place of genuine curiosity. Is there something that is coming up that is not allowing you to hit that benchmark or interfering with your ability to do that, whether it is personal or professional, and asking that question directly, right?
Mm.
Is there something that is coming up in your personal life that you feel like is interfering with your ability to show up here at work? It's not saying, yes, dispose all of your trauma right here to me right now, and you must tell me. But I think at least having that conversation shows that the individual that, hey, I'm open to talking about
Mm.
other than just your purpose here at work. And they could choose to say no, or I'm not comfortable sharing. And I think, it's the job of also the boss too to say, hey, you absolutely don't have to share what that is, but perhaps there is something that is impacting your work here at whatever specific company. So, yeah, I think, ultimately it really comes back to the boss having a little bit more comfort in having uncomfortable conversations with whomever they're overseeing. Because I think if the boss is really struggling to be able to connect with their um team, quote unquote, in that way, I mean, they're not going to reach their full potential anyways, because they know that,
Mm.
it- I mean, I'm just here to kind of do my job and go home. My boss doesn't really care about me.
Yeah, yeah, it sounds like empathy has a tremendous impact on at least opening the gateway for those conversations, like you mentioned, without prying, leaving it up
Yeah, of
to
course.
the person who is struggling to share what they want, when they want, how they want, obviously within workplace policy.
Yeah.
Um, that leads me to my second point actually wonderfully, so I'm kind of happy there. And then we'll jump into maybe more of what you do on a day-to-day basis and talk about nutrition and diets and all that. Just maybe a hard shift. We'll see how it goes. But um how can we'll shift our focus now. We are the struggler
Hmm.
and we don't quite know what to share, who to share it with, how to share, how much to share, because it seems like every time I open my social media apps, people are just sharing their entire life, some of
Yeah.
which I need to see, some of which I could unsee and unfortunately can't.
Right. Right.
How, in a society where sharing is the new normal, what do we keep private?
Yeah, I think that it is so tricky. And I guess you would say in social work school they would encourage you to share the things that you feel like could have meaningful impact, and perhaps avoid sharing the things that maybe are only benefiting you, if that makes sense. So like I'm sharing this thing to, for example, feel better about myself, versus sharing the particular thing to kind of, I'm noticing a trend within our society. I feel like this is a topic that needs to be talked about, perhaps then bridging that conversation as kind of an act of bravery.
Mm.
But if it's the sake of like, I'm sharing to kind of hit my ego, maybe like not sharing that particular thing. But I think every single person is going to have a different level of comfortability in regards to what they're willing to share, right? Especially in the workplace, because I'm going to
Mm.
be honest, a lot of people come from trauma in the workplace, or they have they've had a history of a very significant or troubling relationship with a past boss, where maybe they were vulnerable a little bit in the workplace and that was reprimanded, or maybe they were fired, or maybe that generated issues kind of within the system, and so now they're very closed off and they won't share absolutely anything. And so I always like to just really approach it by person to person basis, because I think what we choose to share is just so it's just so charged. Every single person
Mm.
is going to share things for a particular reason, right? Just like social media, like there definitely are people out there that are sharing things for kind of that ego boost, right? There's definitely people out there who are sharing things because they want to kind of better society. And then, people are sharing things for all other reasons as well. But yeah, I think that's a hard question to answer because it's just so unique to the person, unique to the topic as well. And it's just gonna, depend also too on the setting.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I never really thought of it from the lens of a past employer or boss relationship. That's a fantastic point. And as a coach myself, it's tough because you also have to make a choice that's for the betterment of the team, but you can't squash one individual for the betterment of the team. It's like you said, even on social media, it's a tricky place because you're trying to tick the algorithm so you can get more attention if it's your livelihood, if you want to push them towards your cause. But if you don't, then your message, which could be wonderful and necessary to hear, doesn't get seen. So we do live in a very strange time period in that sense, where even the things that have meaning and need to be heard can
Mhm.
be seen for the wrong reasons when that's not what they were meant to be put out for. And I think that's something that I personally have to learn when it comes to consumption of media, right? Like I'll see some things, like I just said, I wish I could unsee them and never see them again. Well, I don't know why that person put it on the internet.
Yeah.
And clearly, X amount of people found value in it. So if I don't like it, I have options. I can
Mhm.
unfollow, I can limit, I can restrict, I can block, I can just keep scrolling. Like there's no, I think a lot of power that we possess is wasted. Be careful how I word this, is wasted on negativity and putting others down when we can simply just let them exist and not see them as a
Sure.
threat. But I think there's so much to unpack there that I don't necessarily want to dive into on this episode. I want to use your knowledge in much, I would say, more practical ways for our listener base,
Mhm.
which is primarily athletes. And I'm assuming you spend a lot of time with athletes or former athletes
Mhm.
or just fitness people in general, being a dietitian and nutritionist.
Mhm.
Can you kind of debrief us and tell us fundamentally what you do in the nutrition, eating disorder, dietitian world?
Yeah, I would say that majority of my work is individual work with people who are coming to me because they've either been diagnosed with an eating disorder, maybe they have a challenged relationship with food and body, maybe they were told by their doctor that they're under fueling or not feeling enough, and so they want some help in that regard. Other individuals maybe are coming to me because hey, I wanted to take my performance or my athleticism to the next level. And so I want to really cue in on all of the things that can help me do that, nutrition being one of them, mental health, sleep, etc. And so I would say that a good majority of my work is doing that kind of one-on-one nutrition counseling. But I also do a lot of presenting, a lot of kind of team talks, nutrition presentations to different colleges and things like that, typically on topics like relative energy deficiency in sport, or making sure individuals are fueling appropriately, consistently, adequately throughout the day. Body image is a big one too, and then just overall kind of eating disorder awareness. So how can we identify some of those signs and symptoms of eating disorders? I think, again, Caleb, a lot of the times there's a lot of fluff out there, right? Of like, okay, of course I know how to identify an eating disorder. Well, there's a lot of disordered behavior that's actually pretty normalized in our culture. And so, people luckily, I guess, hire me to come and talk about some of those things of like, hey, it's not just what you read in the textbook about an eating disorder. There are all of these different things, like you mentioned, on social media that people are consuming, and they're like, oh, this is a normal thing. I'm going to start doing this tomorrow. When really it's
Hmm.
like, oof, absolutely not. That is going to kind of lead you down a pretty rough patch.
Yeah, I appreciate that because I was doing, surprise, I think I say it every episode. I was doing some reading. I sound like a nerd. Nothing wrong with it, but quick side note, I was just talking to one of my old coaches and I said I think I'm at that age where yes, I still like playing video games, but I'm not good at them enough to play them for more than an hour before I either get bored or frustrated. So then I just pick up a book, and younger me would have laughed, but here I am reading books on the psychology of money. That's where I'm going. But to kind of push me back, you didn't get off track, to push me back towards what we were talking about. I referenced that book, The Psychology of Money, because the author talks about if you're in investment for day trading, don't follow the instructions of someone who's investing for the long term, and vice versa. We see a plethora of knowledge and we think it applies, period. Like just blanket statements, apply. Okay, maybe, right? To get your toe wet for that fluff. How, if we don't know what is, again, I will use this lightly, what is wrong with us or what needs a little bit of assistance, how can we figure out in the mental health terms if we're in it for day trading or if we're in it for long-term investing?
Yeah. I think that it's a little bit tricky. I want to say that, hey, perhaps, okay, I guess in my ideal world, everybody would at least have a touch point with somebody like myself at least once, so that we could have those conversations and kind of decide that information. But I think that is much too good to be true. But perhaps, it is, we could say even engaging with certain individuals like myself on social media could be a way to kind of differentiate, right? Hey, am I doing day trading or am I kind of going down a slippery slope here? Kind of reviewing some of that content or some of the information that, researchers are putting out there on social media, or specific organizations that are, very evidence based and research backed are putting out there, or dietitians like myself, right? Who, have, unfortunately, the alphabet soup, who hopefully, fingers crossed, know a little bit about what they're talking about. But using that, I think that's one of the ways social media can be really impactful to kind of, determine, hey, should I actually go see somebody for like long-term help? Or, hey, is social media or what this person is putting out in regards to, meet day fueling, is that going to kind of get me by so that, I'm in a good place now? There were just some things that I needed to make a little bit of adjustments with, but I think it really is hit or miss. But I think that is probably a way that we could disseminate between those two lanes.
Yeah, that is such important information because I do agree. I think a touch point with a therapist or whatever needs you have, a dietitian, nutritionist, even just a mental health counselor is
Yeah.
incredibly invaluable. But if that's not, unfortunately, that's not real
No.
like that. And it pains me to say that, but it's not always accessible depending on the community and background you come from. If it
Totally.
is if it's accessible, it's not always affordable depending
Totally.
on your upbringing. And if it's affordable, it's not always acceptable, I guess,
Totally. Yeah.
from the upbringing you're in. So uh, I'll tread lightly here because I have 3 letters in my alphabet soup that don't necessarily pertain to the psychology world,
Sure.
uh, more the business world, which is why I think I referenced that book. But I think if your gut feeling is this might be you,
Uh-huh.
before you make any rash decision,
Uh-huh.
if it's possible, sleep on it for a night, wake up with a clear head. And I genuinely mean sleep on it for a night. There's a lot of power in that.
Uh-huh.
Wake up with a clear head. If you still feel that way,
Uh-huh.
then reach out to Kaitlyn. Reach out to someone in the lane that you need assistance with.
Totally.
Because chances are you're not the most severe case of anything.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And again, I'm careful when I say that because someone listening to this might be like, yeah, I'm going to prove you wrong, Caleb. Send me a message and say, I am. And okay, yes. Okay.
Uh-huh.
I apologize. I'll backtrack. But
Uh-huh.
that's 0.0001%. Chances are you just need direction. You
Yeah.
need knowledge. You need a hand to pull you forward, a hand to slow you down. You need that confirmation that, yep, you were right. You do need a little bit more time in this field than you thought. Or no,
Yeah.
maybe you were overthinking a little bit. Just take a deep breath. You're on the right track. This doesn't
Yeah.
pertain to you right now. You need that clarity. I guess that's the word I'm searching for.
Yeah. And I think, to I think a lot of people actually feel shame and guilt when perhaps
Mm,
they're on social media,
mm,
even when they're maybe reading content from myself, content from, I'm just thinking of some of my colleagues who put out really strong content. Obviously, our work is to debunk some of those nutrition myths. And so I could see somebody reading this and being like, oh, I do this thing, so I can't go to these people because if I go to these people, then, that just kind of feeds into the shame and like, oh my
mm.
gosh, I'm one of the people that they're talking about, which is really, and I've thought about this a lot recently in terms of like actually putting out my thoughts and or opinions about various topics because I'm like, I don't want to elicit shame on anybody. And I hope that people know and perhaps, hopefully this opens up the conversation for that. If it's like, oh, I'm reading this thing, I do this thing, this clinician would never want to work with me because I do this thing. That is really the complete opposite. We would hopefully, we would want to work with you so that we could hopefully get you to this place where maybe that thing is less prevalent in your life, but it's never going to come from a shame based um, lens. And if it is, if you go to a provider and they are shaming you, then you should probably go to another provider because it should never be something of like, how dare you? Why would you ever omit carbohydrate or why would you never eat sugar? Like it should never be anything like that. And if it is, then I would say you're certainly with the wrong person.
Yeah, and I think confirmation of that shame, confirmation of that uncomfortability, I think you called it earlier in the episode, is so scary and
Hmm.
requires a ton of vulnerability and requires you to be ready for it.
Hmm.
I know personally there was multiple moments, and I speak about this at all my keynote events and on multiple podcasts. Probably not enough as I should, but I'll get vulnerable for a moment. If I've had a couple anxiety attacks now that I can severely remember,
Hmm.
but I used to be able to hide them in the shower at night. Places when I was alone, I could go to the gym and kind of just work out and push my way through it. And it
Sure.
wasn't until I had one in public and could no longer hide it that I was forced to become vulnerable. And I call it the best worst thing that could have ever happened to me because it forced me to.
Hmm.
I want to know how, and maybe you can't, maybe sometimes rock bottom is necessary to move forward, but is there something that someone can do who might be noticing it within themselves, but is scared to be vulnerable and to maybe face that
Hmm.
fear of confirmation? Because till you've done that, you can't imagine what the other side looks like, but I can speak from a place of experience and say it's not sunshine and rainbows, but it is so much better than trying to hide parts of
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah. And, Caleb, I don't necessarily think I believe that people have to, hit rock bottom, which is
Okay.
exactly what you said. Um, but and rock bottom's obviously going to be different for every single person, but I think
Yeah.
we're kind of trending down towards rock bottom, which is sometimes people are like, I think there might be a problem. I don't know, maybe I'm okay. I'm going to keep going a little bit further.
Mm,
There might be a problem, right? And so maybe there is a time point along that road where it's like, I think I could maybe say something or bring something up. Um, However, I think we have to find a safe space to do that, right? And so,
mm,
again, this kind of goes back to what I was mentioning earlier. If somebody is coming from this place of trauma, right? Maybe they told their old coach that, "Hey, coach, um, I'm feeling a particular way about my body, or I've been restricting my intake." And their coach was like, why are you doing that? Okay, you're not playing anymore, or that's very extreme. But I mean, phew, there certainly have been instances of kind of shame in that way. So maybe they're coming to it from that background. And so, yeah, I could absolutely understand them wanting to be a little bit more closed off, or hey, I'm trending down this slope. Well, the last time this was happening to me, my coach he got really mad at me, or pulled me from sport, or all of my teammates ended up hearing, and they were upset with me, or they pulled away from me. Like there's a lot of shame that is involved. And so back to the original question, I think we really have to find a safe space. So whether
mm,
that is with a mental health clinician, maybe that's with a teammate, with a group of teammates, with a different coach, right? Who really fosters this environment of vulnerability or just being a human. I care about you as a human being before I care about you as an athlete. Um, but sometimes it certainly takes a while to find where is that safe space, where is that place that I can kind of dip my toe in the water of vulnerability and share something that, oh, this is a little bit maybe outside of my comfort zone, but I'm gonna share this little thing versus, diving in the deep end of like, oh, I'm gonna share all of my past trauma, right? Obviously, I wouldn't expect anybody to do that, but at the end of the day, it's really coming back to finding that place where, okay, I feel like this is a place where I can really be who I am. And hopefully that's met with acceptance, right? But we never know that unless we're actually doing the act of being vulnerable. And I come back also to, I don't know if you're familiar, Caleb, but I really, really love Brene Brown's work on vulnerability. I think it's something that all people really should listen to. Um, vulnerability has certainly been seen as a large weakness for a long time. But even her, TED Talk, she has some other kind of presentations, videos that she's done on vulnerability. And I think they're just so instrumental and really kind of listening to those, taking those in and seeing, hey, is there a way, like I said earlier, to kind of dip my toe here, maybe test the waters in the vulnerability? Because actually what I feel like I see, or in individuals who have been a little vulnerable, they've found that, oh, more people have experienced something very similar to me. Like, oh, I feel a lot less alone when I'm able to be vulnerable versus kind of carrying everything within.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think one of our past guests, Michael Fenskin, who's getting his PhD, some sort of alphabet soup. No, I will. He's doing childhood and adolescent absenteeism, and that's where his focus is right now, and how they can
Awesome.
help in that respect. But
Yeah.
he brought up Brene Brown as well. I think that same exact video, and we linked it in that
Oh,
that
great.
episode. We'll link it again in this one for the ease of our listeners, but it is a great 20-minute listen if you have 20 minutes to give to that, right? To open up your vulnerable side, or figure out how to. And there was a lot to unpack in your last statement there, and I'd like to start by saying thank you for not just agreeing with me and saying, "Oh, yes, you must hit rock bottom to do X, Y, and Z," because it is personal, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is or was my current rock bottom. Do I know if it's my last rock bottom? No.
Yeah.
Do I hope it is? Do
Yeah.
I hope it is? Of
Right.
course, right? I don't want to go back to that or worse.
Yep.
But that requires a level of vulnerability, a level of understanding, a level of acceptance,
Mhm.
and a level of healthy fear. And I think that is also something that we can't just push to the side. But
Mhm.
to kind of keep going forward, second thing I want to unpack in what you spoke about was finding that safe space.
Mhm.
At a bare minimum, until we get a Kaitlyn in every single school,
Right.
there's an athletic trainer, and
Yep.
they have friends in that space. They have colleagues in that space. They can get you the connections, right? We talked about connections and community. Go to them first.
Mhm.
If you're not comfortable with going to your coach for
Yeah.
a multitude of reasons, right? We can't read your mind. You need to make your mind known if you have that inkling, like I mentioned, like, hey, this could be me. If
Mhm.
it's possible, sleep on it, then go get the assistance. You'll be able to approach it much more level-headedly. Thirdly, to get back onto my visual learning run here.
Mhm.
It's funny that I say run because that's what I'm about to reference. If and this might be a stretch, so stop me if you think this is a stretch.
Mhm.
When I think of wanting to, not wanting, needing, wanting, kind of curious about becoming vulnerable, opening up, asking for some advice or some assistance or confirmation, whatever you want to call it. I think about it as adding an extra sprint to the end of your practice.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
not something you want to do
Mhm.
9 times out of 10, unless you're amped up that day for some reason. But you're tremendously proud of yourself, whether you finish in the recommended time or not,
Mhm.
because you did it.
Mhm.
Is there any relation there in terms of opening up, right? You might feel like you're on this slippery slope. You have no more energy left. You don't know what to do. You can't take that next run, for lack of better terms.
Yeah.
But if you just put one foot forward, how proud of ourselves can we be for taking that act in terms of mental health?
Yeah. I would say that and the research backs this up too. When we get to that place of being vulnerable, we actually find that we're not alone. A lot of it's very common for us to go into situations or to hit that rock bottom, like you mentioned, and we think, "Oh my gosh, this is only happening to me. I am the biggest loser of all time. I'm the only person that has ever had this thought or has ever had this experience." Or, I'm just so crazy is kind of another or topic or term that people kind of bring up. But when we again dip our toe out there and we approach that vulnerability or we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, what actually find is we let that kind of turtle shell, we stick our head out a little bit, right? And so it's like, oh, some of these other people actually, oh, this person has anxiety like I do, or like, oh, I thought this person had it all together. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that they experienced depression. Um, and so, when it feels like there is absolutely no way another person could ever feel this way, I cannot be vulnerable with this. I would Obviously, we can't guarantee anything in life, but I would almost guarantee that there is one human on this planet who has felt that way and who
Hmm.
does get it, even if it feels like there's no possibility of that. And so, um, allowing ourselves again to take that risk, right? I mean, we never fly if we never jump, right? So if we're
Mm.
just, sitting in the plane and like, oh, I can't jump, I can't jump, I can't jump, well then we're never going to experience that bliss. In another video perhaps you could link to, it's actually one of my favorite videos that's on the same topic, is Fear, by Will Smith. It was actually, I think, on an Oprah show. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but he talks exactly about this. Like, we hype ourselves up, we get so much anxiety about all of these particular things, but once we actually jump or once we actually are vulnerable, wow, oh my gosh, this wasn't as bad as I thought. And oh gosh, I actually made a friend, or I was able to connect
Mm.
with this person who I never would have thought I would ever connected with. Um, and not only can it help us, it can help other people as well. So then we're all as a collective feeling like, phew, next time I do hit rock bottom, or if I feel like I'm going down that way, well, I can remind myself, last time I felt this way, I actually wasn't alone. And so it just allows us to hold on to hope.
Yeah, you said it wonderfully. I guess, how beautiful would it be, Caitlin, if you felt like you're the only person to experience it,
Mhm.
but then someone else came to you one day and you were like, "Oh, I've experienced this. You're not alone," right? Even if you've never heard of someone else who's experienced
Right.
this, can you be that one person for the
Mhm.
next person that comes along with it, right? That takes a tremendous amount of strength and a
Mhm.
tremendous amount of self-adjustment and work if necessary, but I could just envision someone feeling that way, like they are completely alone, and then one day someone comes along and you're like, "No, no, no, I'm right here for you. You can be
Totally.
that shoulder to cry on and lean on." I think the healing and the power that you need
Mhm.
could come that way as well, and we've seen that so many times too, right? That's why a lot of times that's why people in your industry go into that profession. A lot of times that's why keynote speakers exist in that respect. That's why you name the profession, chances are if you're in it, you've struggled with it at one point
Right.
and you wanted to help someone along the road. I mean, that's why our podcast exists.
Right.
And to me, that's beautiful. That's continuing to pursue your passion, your perhaps new reason why, for the right reasons,
Mhm.
even if you start to question that yourself. So if that's you, like Caitlin said, and you don't think there's anyone out there that's experienced it, number one, my challenge to you is to find someone who has, because I
Yeah.
think you will. And
Mhm.
if you haven't, can you be that person that someone goes searching for one day, because that holds equally as much value.
Yeah.
Um,
And Caleb, just one other thing I want to mention there is,
yeah,
maybe it's like, hey, I'm not ready to be vulnerable yet, but I am going to make the active effort to at least explore the potential of it. And so maybe it's, I'm going to go to this club on campus, or I'm
mm,
going to, go out with this group of friends that I would have probably never guessed I would ever like. Or maybe it's going to some sort of support group, or I don't know, learning collaborative, right? There's a bunch, especially if we're thinking about college campuses, there's a bunch of these different various groups, opportunities, etc. And so, yeah, maybe it's no, I'm absolutely not going to be vulnerable. But then you go to one of these things and you hear from somebody else in the group, and it's like, oh, what? Like, that's how I feel, right? So, oh, if this person can be vulnerable, maybe I can try it, or maybe I can ask that person to get coffee, because I'm not comfortable sharing with a large group. But when over coffee, maybe I could ask them about what their experience is like, and then that allows me to be a little bit more vulnerable. So, I guess where I'm going with that is like, even if you're not to this place of like, oh yeah, I want to share everything with everybody. Perhaps approaching it from the lens of I'm just going to explore different groups of people and see, oh, if something comes up that I feel that I resonate with, so then I can make that connection with that person, and then perhaps again dip my toe in that water and practice being vulnerable myself.
Yeah, I think again, another wonderful point. I need a button. Thanks, Caitlin. That was awesome. Um, I think a lot of times we are 0 or 100 or all or nothing,
Mhm,
especially as athletes. I think that's in our mentality a lot.
mhm.
For better or for worse, we can compartmentalize for the majority of the time to be all or nothing at our sport. Obviously, there is some overlap, and that's when you need to be vulnerable. But I think there's a lot to be said in slowly dipping your toe into the water and figuring out if it's for you before you just go dive headfirst into the deep end, right? Because that you didn't do that with your sport,
Yeah.
right? You
Right.
started at whatever age, you started with the basics. For
Right.
soccer, we'll keep it soccer for me. How to dribble with your strong foot, how to make a pass, and maybe the positions, right? We didn't just say, all right, here's an 11v11 game, full slide tackling, you're playing in the Premier League. Like, well, of course you'd be overwhelmed. I think a lot of times athletes forget the work that we put in to get where we are at our respective levels. And it takes that for outside of athletics as well. Schooling, you start
Sure.
with the ABCs and nap time for a reason. I think you should end with the ABCs and nap time, but that's a whole different episode. We just forget how much work and the beauty in the work that there is, right? The aha moments, as a couple other of our guests have called them, are tremendously healing and tremendously educational. And once we can kind of slow it down, see the punches coming at us, and understand that some of them are going to hit us in the face like they did in our sport and our life, and some of them we're going to be able to dodge, some of them we're going to be able to throw back, right? When we can kind of conceptualize it that way and just take a deep breath and in a I guess a more pragmatic approach rather than just cannonball.
Yeah.
Um, I
Right.
think it's a lot more beneficial for the majority of people. I know some people have gone off the deep end and ended up swimming or gone cold turkey
Sure.
on different addictions that they have. And yeah, again, it's not a one size fits all, right? If you could put on your floaties and jump off the deep end and go for it, but I personally don't recommend that, right? So you got to figure out what works for you. But I kind of want to shift gears, if you're okay with it, into the final couple topics here. And then the big, scary last question that I hit every guest with. But we've talked about a lot, right? And there's a lot of things you can do for your mental health, for your physical wellness. When and how much is just too much? When is it like, okay, you're consuming 10 hours a day of this, you need to step back,
Mhm.
relax, and revisit?
Yeah. Um, and when you just for clarification, are we talking about kind of like we're spending 10 hours a day on just our soul self of our brain, or
Yeah,
are you?
so I guess I get good follow up. I think when I propose this question, it's like, yeah, okay, so we have our day job. Perhaps we forget about self improvement. We'll go on that lens. Self improvement at our day job. We're doing our work. The second we get in the car, we listen to an on purpose podcast. Then we get home and we cook the most nutritional meal, and then we hit our workout, and then we spend time like we
Right.
try to paint this perfect ideal life, and
Yes.
when one thing falls short, we're like, "Oh crap!" And then we hit the panic button, and we're like, "I need to do this, this, and this to get it back." And you can see the spiral there. Are there or is there such thing as healthy gaps in self improvement?
Oh gosh, yes. Are there such things as healthy gaps? Yes. Do I think a lot of people have healthy gaps? Not really. And also including myself in there, so it's not like, oh my gosh, I'm so great and you're not. But I think we all could probably improve at this idea of having healthy gaps. We could all give ourselves a lot more grace. Um, I obviously would have to dive into the research on this, but I would really love to know when we kind of started to become this society obsessed with self improvement to the
Hmm.
level of it's like the only thing that we're doing, right? I mean, if we're to think back 100 years ago, like after work, you would, maybe go spend time with a loved one or go see a friend or see a movie or go to the dance, right? I mean, after work now, ours is like strictly you must read a book by 7, and then at 8 o'clock you have to start your wind down routine, and then yeah, and perhaps social media has kind of fed into this, right? We see like, oh, my 5 a.m. wake up or my 8 p.m. wind
I
down.
wish.
You're
I
right.
wish.
And
No
then
screen time after 9 o'clock, and it's like, what are you talking about?
right. Right. So, I mean, I think that further makes us feel like, oh my gosh, is something wrong with me? I do my screen time at 9:01, right? Like, oh, I'm such a loser. And Caleb, this theme comes back to the same thing over and over, and it's shame, right?
Mm.
It's just putting kind of, oh, now I'm a loser because I went to get takeout when I was supposed to eat this fresh home cooked meal, or I'm a loser because I chose to go with my boyfriend versus, going to the gym. And I don't know, how we mitigate that other than, you know, coming back to this idea of grace. Like, why are we so deeply committed to this, constant self improvement? Where does that stem from?
Mm.
Where do we where have we kind of gotten this idea of like if we're not doing X, Y, and Z things, we're no good? And what is it like to, have maybe a structure, a schedule, or something that we want to follow? Because that can, be very beneficial for people, but also when we're veering off track a little bit, I don't know, maybe your friend calls you and is like, let's go to happy hour or whatever. I mean,
First
being
of all, I'm there. Doesn't matter what day of the week or the hour. I am there. So if anyone needs a happy hour, I'm your guy.
cancel that workout for the
Yeah.
happy hour. Yeah, I think it's coming back to though, having flexible structure, grace. Not everything needs to be so regimented and perfect. And, I think if we're thinking in eating disorder terms too, everything typically is regimented and perfect. And where that anxiety stems from is, when we get off course or, oh my gosh, I can't get my workout in. I have to go to this thing now. That usually provokes a lot of anxiety for individuals with eating disorders. And so, yeah, it comes back to control, shame, management of our anxiety, feeling like this is what a good person does or is or whatever else. And I'm a loser if I'm doing these things over here. Well, who said? Who made you a loser?
Mm.
Why are you a loser? I think asking yourself that question, because if Susie so and so is calling you a loser, like, I don't know, sound your alarm. It doesn't matter if you're working at 6 a.m. or 6 p.m. or, not that day. So, yeah, I feel like I could go on a long
Yeah,
tangent.
no, I like it. I like it. I think this could be a revisit episode for us is
Yeah.
Susie so and so called me a loser. That's the next episode with
I
Kaitlyn.
use
But
Susie a lot. I use Susie a lot in the next.
Susie so and so calls me a loser. Hey, that might be the title of this one. No, there's too much valuable information to focus on Susie so and so. But the point being, I think you hit the nail right on the head. I argue that as long as we're trending in the right direction, right? And your trend could go way up, way down, look like a mountain. It could be a giant loop. It could be a roller coaster. But as long as the roller coaster doesn't stop and you keep moving forward,
Totally.
1% better, as James Clear puts it, as I reference all the time. Fantastic. I personally have a list. I like to say every morning, but sometimes it's not. Most mornings
Sure.
of 10 things that I need to get done or would like to get done. And
Hmm.
I pick 3 non negotiables that day.
Hmm.
What has to be
Okay.
done by the end of the day, no matter what. And if you think about it, that's 30% of
Hmm.
my list.
Hmm.
That's a solid chunk if I'm drained and have nothing left to give.
Totally.
30%, pretty
Totally.
good.
Yeah.
If I only miss 3 things, that's 70%.
Mhm.
Holy cow, I did 7 things that I valued today.
Totally.
I
Absolutely.
think instead and seeing those checked off the list almost inspires you to go to the next one, right?
Hmm.
Don't get caught up on the list. It can always roll over. Whatever you missed that next day, start the following day with, unless it can be done later. And I think there's I don't know, I'm blanking on the name right now, but there's like a 4 square box with it where it's like
Yep.
time, Oh my god. Now I just sound like a big dummy,
Yeah,
but we'll put that in the
I know it. I know what you're talking
it's gonna
about.
make me angry.
What's it about?
The thought is escaping me, but it has to it's a very we'll put that in the description below as well. It's like urgent, important. There's a whole list, but if you missed it, we'll put a link in there. We're not gonna spend too much time there. But we do live in a time where there is so much information. And I'm curious, just like you are, to when we became such a health centric society, although there could be worse things we could be. Let's just put that out there first. I'm kind of glad this is where society has gone,
Mhm.
but you can never be satisfied. We got to keep working at it. I'm curious, and maybe you know the answer to this. When did we become such a let's take in the knowledge,
Mm,
but not really act on it? Because I think it's one thing to have knowledge, and
mhm.
it's another thing to attempt to use the knowledge to your benefit.
Yeah. Um, I might go a slightly different direction because I think there's a
Please, please.
caveat here. Um, I I think I mean, everybody could agree that we're just infiltrated with knowledge all day long, every day. It's just knowledge, 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 knowledge. I don't know if our world is structured in a way in which we can actually use that knowledge all that much. And I say that from the lens of people are working, from 8 to 5. And then maybe they're caring for a child. And then we tell them they need to be exercising. And we tell them that they need to, eat a healthy meal. And then we tell them that they need to read a book or, do something self improvement wise. And we tell them that they need to get X amount of hours of sleep. And so, you know, I mean, we're already providing all that knowledge that I just mentioned, right? And then we have all the other knowledge that they're also getting. And so I don't know if there's a lot of time in the day to do a lot of these things that we are just being inundated with.
Mm.
And so, sure, there are obviously small things that we could do probably day to day to take the knowledge that we're given and actually implement that. But I would say that, there just are so many barriers out there, and this idea of like I keep referencing this 5 a.m. thing that people are doing on TikTok or Instagram of like they wake up at 5 a.m. and then they do this and this, right? But that is like a very small group of people who have the ability to do that thing. Like all of us over here, we can take that knowledge in of how great these people feel when they do this from 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. Right. But like my schedule doesn't allow that.
I need that sleep. I
Yeah.
need that sleep.
So, sorry, I can't do that particular thing. Or maybe it's like, people are recommending this particular supplement. Like supplements are just so big in our world nowadays, but you should take this and take this for this, take this for this. Well, some people don't have an extra $300 a month to be spending
Mm.
on your plethora of supplements, right? And so I think it's coming back down to making really small goals, not like, oh my gosh, yeah, I'm going to start exercising for 60 minutes every single day for the whole month. Well, I mean, that feels very silly. Maybe it's like, oh, I'm going to walk my dog for 10 minutes twice a
Mm.
week. So we're letting ourselves down much more. And then sure, if you walk your dog 3 times, 4 times, fantastic. But it's not like, oh my gosh, I'm committing to this like super steep goal. And then now again, here comes the guilt and shame again of, oh, I didn't do it. So, I'm such a loser. I know how important, exercise is. And this person is telling me that I need to be exercising X amount of time per week. And now I just can't do it. And
Mm.
you would be so surprised. I mean, you wouldn't maybe be surprised, Caleb, you particularly, but I would say a lot of people actually come to me with that guilt and shame, and they almost feel like, well, because I couldn't do it this week, I'm never going to be able to do it. They just feel so defeated because the knowledge that is coming to them, they're not actually able to apply because of all the multitude of reasons I just mentioned. And then it further discourages them from ever actually doing it.
Yeah, I appreciate that lens. Like you said, they're already defeated, and then as soon as they open up anything in their life, or even turn on the radio, they're hearing celebrities are doing this and are succeeding when they might not be, right? Like we don't know this celebrity personally, and if they are, oh my gosh, hats off, kudos to them. I'm not going to hold them back, but
But they
it's
probably
almost
have a team of
correct. They have the extra X amount of dollars a month,
right.
and they have a couple months off, but their lifestyle is totally different than ours, right? You need to be where your feet are
Mhm.
wholeheartedly to understand what you need. And again, that does come with, to tie everything back together, an extreme amount of care,
Totally.
vulnerability, time,
Mhm.
patience,
Mhm.
attention, and you're capable of it,
Mhm.
even if it is in bite sizes. As Kaitlyn mentioned, you brought it up again, whether you realize that or not. You don't need to set 60 minutes a day for 30 days in a row. You need to do 30 minutes for
Totally.
15 days,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
Every other day in a month, an average month. That's why my list personally is 10 things. It used to be like 50, and
Yeah.
I'd be like, "You dummy, you only got 3 things done." Like, I'm not immune to this
Yeah.
feeling of
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
guilt and self-depletion either, but I learned through a lot of trial and error, still mostly error, that 10 is my number.
Sure.
And it's a healthy goal for me because the days that I hit it, it feels like a slam dunk. Feels like I just hit a home run. I'm like, "Dude, you're on top of the world.
Totally.
Don't finish the rest of your energy drink." Like, I'm just I have natural energy. The
Totally.
days that I don't hit it, it still motivates me enough, right?
Mhm.
You need that. You can't just sit in that space of, "Oh, it'll be okay, it'll be okay." That's a totally different issue that you need to go to Kaitlyn about. But you need that healthy dose of failure in order to feel the elation that comes with success. And if I start to hit 10, can I
Mhm.
challenge it to 11?
Mhm. Mhm.
Notice how I didn't say 20. That's a huge jump.
Totally.
That's that 5 a.m. person. If I want to get up earlier and I'm waking up at 9, can I go to literally 8:45? Your body will struggle for a
Right.
while to get up 15 minutes earlier unless you have something that you're looking forward to. Then it seems like I wake up before the alarm. But I appreciate the wealth of knowledge. And again, we could spend 2 more hours chatting about this. Maybe we'll have Susie so and so tells me I'm lazy back on the next episode. But I wanted to, before we jump into the final question, open up the floor to you.
Mm.
Where can we find you? What social medias are you on?
Mhm.
And is there anything that we didn't chat about today that you think needs to be kind of mentioned?
Yeah, well, you can find me on my website. So it's Kaitlyn Pscodna RDN.com. I don't know if Caleb, you can put that in the show notes. You can also find me on Instagram. I'm gonna be honest, I'm kind of hit or miss with Instagram. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, I want to be posting. Other times I'm like, nah. I feel like especially nowadays, Instagram is feeling really heavy for me, and maybe this is a season and then I'll get back at it. But I would say that, most people find me probably through Instagram or through my website, and then they will either message me or send me an email. So that is a way that you can find me. And then in terms of, let's see, anything that I feel like we didn't talk about. No, I feel like, I don't know if I had a really idea. Maybe I thought we were going to talk a little bit more about nutrition coming in, but I'm glad what we talked about, what we talked about. So, no, not right now. Hopefully, Susie so and so can make her way back and we can, talk about other things.
Susie so and so is hungry and wants to talk about nutrition. We definitely will pick your brain. We are going to have you back on. We're not going to, who knows? It could be in a month, could be in a year, could be 2 years, but we will definitely have you back on
Hey,
to maybe focus. I guess if the needs of our community call for nutrition
oh,
again, you're our
yeah,
first call. We'll go that way. We're going to call you back when the time is right.
yes.
When, when,
And if they don't want nutrition, okay, that's totally cool too.
no, yeah, we appreciate that. But I'm really stuck on this Susie so and so. Like, Susie so and so says my tummy hurts. Like, I'm going to use that more often now. I'm going to steal that from you. But are you ready for the
Yeah.
big scary question?
Yes, I'm excited.
Oh, whoa, that's the first time someone's ever excited. Maybe you know what's coming your way. No, I'm kidding. So, we do like to end every episode here on the Make Mental podcast with the final question that leaves our listeners hopefully compelled to do the same. So, if there's one person in the entire world right now, Kaitlyn, who could use a hug from you, who would you give yours to and why?
That could use a hug from me. I would probably say my mom. Why? Because she was just diagnosed with strep throat earlier today, and I know how deeply my mother loves me, and that my hug would transform her whole day and make her feel a lot better.
Yeah. We love that. Maybe a virtual hug till the strep is not contagious. But as soon as it, no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. That's a beautiful, a beautiful person to give your hug out to, and I'm sure when this episode comes out, she will feel that hug. And if it needs to be, hopefully it'll be the little cure for her strep
Yeah.
throat. So we love that.
Hopefully, strep throat is long gone by the time this episode comes out. But yes,
That is also a fair point.
my mom is certainly somebody who's very special to me. So, and with my, or at least my mom, she is very much like, oh my gosh, you're my best thing in the entire world. So I know that my hug would be very meaningful to her. Other people, hit or miss.
Well, that's why we leave it up to the guests, right? They feel who they need to give a hug to, and some people will hopefully be compelled to go give their mom or their dad or
Totally.
whoever they consider their parental figure a hug
Right.
after this. So that's kind of the point of that question. For those wondering why the heck we ask it, go give someone a virtual hug, a real hug. I would ask them first. I don't recommend just going up and giving hugs. Sometimes that's not the case, but like we said, if you're feeling compelled to call your person or whoever comes to mind first, please do it, because chances are they need it. The universe is crazy like that, and whoever you want to give it to needs it. But
Totally. Absolutely.
what a joy it's been, Kaitlyn. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise,
Yes.
for sharing Susie with us, and letting us know kind of how we can take care of ourselves, how we can dip our toes into vulnerability, and really just making the world of mental health a little bit more accessible, a little bit more scary. We will put all the information we referenced in the show notes, where you can find her, the Will Smith, the Brene Brown, the Matrix that I'm still kind of inching closer to figuring out the name of. But yeah, what an absolute pleasure it was to have you on the podcast. Thank you for sharing your wealth of knowledge with us.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, Caleb, and I'm so grateful that you host a podcast like this, so that people are open to so much knowledge from a multitude of different people.